Thank you so much. Quick introduction. I am Linda Durhack, the Energy and Climate Outreach Associate at Illinois Extension. I'll be your moderator for this webinar today. We will be sharing a funding forecast for 2026. As you can see, this webinar is co-sponsored by Prairie Rivers Network, and I'd like to thank Randa Watts, the Clean Water Organizer, for her work in facilitating this presentation with me. Before we get into our speakers, I just want to go over some very brief guidelines. So we are recording this webinar. We'll send slides, contact information, resources, and the recording in the next few days. And you can always find local government educational webinars on our YouTube channel, and we will share that link in the chat. And if you have a question, please feel free to put that in the chat. We will share questions with the speakers during the Q&A at the end. All right. This is an overview of our agenda today. So first, we will have JC Kibbey on speaking about the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, this program, and the funding opportunities offered through that. And then we will have Claire talking about climate bank funding opportunities. And then Hilary will be sharing state energy funding. So thank you again to our speakers for joining us today. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. I will stop sharing my screen so that he can go ahead and put his slides up. JC Kibbey is the climate advisor for the state of Illinois, where he analyzes, develops, and implements climate energy policy. He helped to negotiate and pass the Climate Equitable Jobs Act, CEJA, and is leading implementation of the state's $430 million climate pollution reduction grant. He previously served as Senior Illinois Clean Energy Advocate at the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC, and as Midwest Climate Energy Advocate for the Union of Concerned Scientists. He holds a master's in public policy from Northwestern and a bachelor's in political theory from Michigan State University's J. Madison College. So I'll turn it over to you, JC.
Thank you, Linda. Good reminder that I should shorten my bio a bit. You got through that very adroitly. So let me just share my screen here quickly. Can folks see this okay?
Yes, that is looking great.
Great. So I'm just skipping through a couple of the slides on this presentation because this isn't as relevant to the folks here today, but I'm going to talk about some of the different avenues of funding that are available through our Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. This is a federal grant that we received in 2024. And Linda, just a quick time check. How long do I have here?
You've got about 15 minutes.
Okay. So we got this in 2024. Ours is one of the largest in the country, and as you can see, it spans a lot of different sectors. The intent of the CPRG, again, Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, was to plug gaps where we did not have significant funding available already for some of these climate measures. And so that's why you see the power sector list, for instance, is quite a bit shorter. That's because we already have a lot of great programs here in the state of Illinois in the power sector that we created in CEJA and some of these other bills. And as I'm sure folks are aware, we're going to be building on that even further with the passage of SERJA during veto session. So that is exciting. So a lot of this funding is in the clean buildings and clean fleet and freights, which is really about vehicle electrification. That is focused almost exclusively on heavy duty vehicles. The reason for that is that it's a great bang for the buck in terms of both climate pollution reduction and criteria pollution reduction. It has serious environmental justice impacts. So we see the heavy duty electrification as a good place to move the needle. The clean industry list is a bit shorter than we would have hoped. We actually applied as part of a consortium of other Midwest states for a larger CPRG award in the industry space, but that was not successful. Only our state application was successful, so that list is a little shorter. So as I go through here, I'm just going to go over some of these different programs. Just given the time, I may not have time to get into as much detail as I would like to about each of these, but in particular, I'm going to try and flag which of these are already out and are funding opportunities that are open and available today, and then also which ones we expect to be released pretty soon. I think most or all of these should be out sometime by the end of next calendar year, but some are coming up a little quicker than others. So I'm just gonna run through these. So this is on the building side. Again, buildings, one of the largest sources of emissions in the state. I'm not going to read these verbatim, but just to note the Gap Closing Catalyst Fund. We heard directly from both contractors and like homeowners that oftentimes there would be great clean building projects where folks had found a good financing stack, but over, a couple $1,000s missing on a project that might total, $50,000. They were having to walk away from otherwise good clean building projects with interested homeowners and solid funding structures. So this is just to help to get that last little bit of funding for those projects so that we don't have to walk away from them. With clean building projects, it's really key that, when you have a contractor in the door and you have a homeowner that's interested, that you do everything you can for them on efficiency, on electrification, and so on. And so this is to make sure that we do everything we can when there is a contractor in the door. So this has taken a bit of time to get up and running for boring administrative reasons that I won't get into, but again, expected sometime next calendar year. Similar timing with the Navigator program here. This is just in recognition of the fact that a lot of folks, it can be intimidating to find a contractor. It can be intimidating to sort out all the different incentives that are available from utilities, from until fairly recently, the federal government. Unfortunately, that's going away, state governments, and so on. So this is really like a hand-holding program for people, families who want to get clean building measures in their homes, but aren't quite sure where the money is, where the contractors are. This is to take some of the fear out of that process and have somebody to walk them through it. And this has been done successfully in other states. So they say good artists copy, great artists steal. That's what we are doing here with some other successful state policies. The Clean Access Building Access Portal, really a continuation of that. That's not going to be a public-facing grant opportunity, nor is the Navigator program. These are really more like public-facing services that are going to be run out of the state. I will try to keep up on things in the chat here. Okay, great. Clean Buildings contractor training. Again, this is going to be not a NOFO, but a service that we provide to that the DCEO is going to be providing to contractors to help their workers get trained up on heat pumps, on energy efficiency, and other measures like that across the state, but especially outside of Chicagoland. There's a real shortage in the workforce right now of folks who know how to do all that. And so as we're ramping up the amount of clean buildings work we're doing, we got to ramp up the workforce alongside that. The Clean Building Concierge, very similar to the Navigator program, except targeted at larger building owners, like commercial building owners. So this is, again, hand-holding them through a clean building process. If you own a grocery store or a coffee shop, you may not get up every morning thinking, how do I decarbonize? How do I optimize my electricity usage? These are going to be subject matter experts who can help you identify those opportunities that are going to be both economically and environmentally beneficial. We've got Claire Brinley from IFA on, who I think is going to talk some more about community geothermal and the stretch code adoption, because IFA is working on is implementing those programs. But I will just say that the stretch code adoption is open now, and the community geothermal, I think, is going to be open very soon. So you'll hear more from Claire on those shortly. Moving on to the transportation sector, I'm going to lump these first two together: heavy-duty charging infrastructure and heavy-duty EV support. These are both intended to get heavy-duty electric vehicles on the road. The first one to get the charging infrastructure in place. The second one to get the vehicles themselves. So the EV team at IEPA, led by Megalak Shura, is working hard to get these measures up and running. They've done a lot of programs like this in the past, so they're very familiar with how to do it. I'd expect this to be out in Q1 of next year. So if you're thinking about if you want to put heavy duty vehicles on the road that are electrified, but financing has been an obstacle, definitely give this program a look. Trackside power rail yards. This is for like diesel engines when there's a lot of train hubs, a lot of freight hubs rail hubs in Chicago in particular, elsewhere in the state as well. A lot of them are located in environmental justice communities. So these trains will pull in, they'll sit in those stations idling for hours. And that idling is nasty from both a climate and a criteria pollution criteria pollution perspective. So this is about getting trackside power so they can just plug into the grid while they're there and not idle that diesel. We can probably only do a couple a couple trackside power installations this way, but we hope it'll be proof of concept and something that we can scale up more in the future. Freight planning and engagement. Illinois is one of the largest, and especially Chicagoland is one of the largest freight hubs in the nation, maybe the largest inland freight hub. But unlike places like the Port of New York or the Port of Los Angeles, there's no centralized planning authority to deploy infrastructure or those sorts of things. And because of that, it's been hard to plan for electrification in freight in Chicagoland. So this is to kick off a planning process that we hope will be useful, not just for vehicle electrification, for other things too, but sort of a holistic view of vehicle electrification for freight in the state of Illinois. And we're going to have both communities and industry at the table as part of that. That'll probably kick off at some point next year. Clean freight concierge, you're seeing this concierge concept a lot. Again, this is if you're like a small fleet owner, maybe you want to electrify, but you're worried it's costly, you don't know the technical end of it. This is white glove service to help walk you through that. There'll literally just be a number that you can call and somebody can help you out with identifying those opportunities. Air data collection and analysis. So you see a lot of work here that is going to be reducing climate pollution for sure, but also addressing criteria pollution. And this is to get some air monitors deployed so that we can help track the actual progress that we are making on the criteria pollution side. Last but not least, fleet operator and worker training. So this is in part workers to actually install the chargers, but also fleet operations for an electric vehicle fleet are quite different for a gasoline fleet. There is less maintenance, but you have to factor in charging. The schedules may be a little different because of that. So this was one of the major obstacles that we heard from fleet operators directly when we did stakeholder engagement as part of this grant, that was an obstacle. So we're providing that training for fleet operators as well as workers that are actually putting in the infrastructure. Clean industry, as I said, this one's a little smaller than the other two. You see this concierge concept again. So if you're a small factory owner or something like that, you want to look at more efficiency, more low carbon, more electrified measures in your facility. This clean industry concierge is white glove service to walk you through the process of doing that, to identify opportunities, to identify funding, and so on. And the fluorinated gas reduction program, again, modeled off of something that we've seen successfully implemented in some other states. Fluorinated gases are extremely potent greenhouse gases, thousands of times more potent than CO2. Mostly where they come from is older refrigerators. And so this program is swapping out those older refrigerators for new ones. So this could be in a cold storage warehouse. This could be in a Mariano's. This could be in your bodega on the corner in your neighborhood. This is available to a lot of different sizes of business, but the main point is we're upgrading those refrigerators to ones with lower climate pollution, and they're also going to be more efficient to save some money for those business owners as well. On the agriculture side, crop residue management. So this is out in the world now. You might see this called, the funding opportunity is called like climate smart agriculture. This is being run through the Illinois Department of Agriculture. Again, funding currently open for this. So this is to do no-till farming. We've actually moved fully to no-till farming. There's not a cover crop piece of this program due to inflation, because that's much more expensive. And for us to hit our goals, we had to switch over to the no-till. Still would like to find ways to do more of the cover cropping in the future. But there's an open funding opportunity for farmers that want to do no-till, and they can get paid to do that. So take a look at the Illinois Department of Agriculture website. We're working to get all of these funding opportunities centralized on the Illinois EPA website for the CPRG. So working with our communications team to get those up now, just spoke with them this morning actually. So I'd expect in the next couple of weeks, all of the funding opportunities here will be centralized on Illinois EPA's CPRG website. So if you just search like Illinois CPRG, if you Google that, it should be the first thing that come up. There's also a listserv on that website where you can sign up to get updates about funding opportunities as they come out, stakeholder engagement opportunities and the like. Moving on to biomethane management. So biomethane comes from a lot of sources. It comes from decaying organic matter mostly. So this is wastewater treatment facilities. This is landfills. This is also certain types of livestock operations or other agricultural operations. Methane, as folks probably know, is a potent greenhouse gas. And so we want to either reduce the methane that these facilities are producing. For example, you can feed cattle differently and they'll generate less methane, or to capture that methane and use it for high value end uses. In the industrial space, for instance, when we look at like high heat industrial processes, those are tough to replace with electrification and can be a really good use for biomethane. What we were trying to stay away from is just injecting this right into the gas distribution system. That is not a good use for biomethane from a cost perspective or from a scarce resource perspective. So really looking at those high value end uses, we expect to have a funding opportunity out for this, I'd say Q1 of next year. Clean small engines, this is all about lawnmowers, leaf blowers, string trimmers, and so on. These are big polluters, both from a climate and a criteria pollution perspective. There are great electric alternatives available, which I know because I run all my yard equipment on electric, and it's really great. It's quieter, you're not breathing fumes, and your neighbors don't hate you. So we're going to have this, don't have an exact quarter timeline, but out sometime next year. Going to be focused more on contractors because those pieces of equipment just see a lot more use. So if they're out there, doing lawn work 8 hours a day, the pollution reduction is a lot greater than for a homeowner who's, mowing their lawn for an hour every 2 weeks. So that's why the focus on contractors there. But this is open to like parks districts or school districts, if you've got a lot of fields that you're mowing and stuff like that, or, corporate campuses or whatever, this could be a good opportunity. Last but not least, clean power, statewide clean energy modeling. So this is building on some work that the Illinois Power Agency has already been doing, but as folks may be aware, in CEJA, we set timelines to reduce emissions from the power sector at fossil fuel plants in Illinois. So there's a timeline for those emissions to phase out and to phase down. And so as we are doing that, we need to make sure that we're bringing the right resources online to have our power grid continue to be affordable, reliable, and safe. And so this modeling helps us to look forward in the future as we meet those emissions reductions targets. Is that going to potentially create reliability challenges that we need to address? And if so, how do we get at that from a resource perspective? And then we're going to be building on this even more with the integrated resource planning process that we created in SERJA, which is the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act, is what that acronym stands for that we just passed. Similarly, on the public utility clean energy modeling, this is a funding opportunity that is currently open. I think Claire is going to expand upon this a little more, but just another plug for SERJA here that municipal and cooperative utilities starting in a couple years, a year or two, are going to have to start doing resource planning processes under the law. And so this public utility clean energy modeling funding opportunity will be helpful for those municipal and cooperative utilities as they start to have to do that planning. It's financial support for them as they go about doing that. So those are all the funding opportunities, and I think I flagged the ones that are either currently available or will be released pretty soon. So let me pause there. I think I'm pretty close to time, but if there's any questions and our hosts will allow, I'm happy to field those now. Otherwise, we can move on.
Thank you so much, JC. We will do Q&A at the end just to make sure we have time to get through everyone's presentations, but thank you so much, and it's great to hear that the IPA will be having a centralized source for this funding in the future. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Claire, and I have her bio here. So Claire Brinley is the program manager of the Illinois Finance Authority Climate Bank. Claire works on the development of the Climate Bank's new grant and loan products, focusing on program design, community outreach, and project implementation. Prior to joining the Illinois Finance Authority in 2023, Claire worked in the Office of Governor J.B. Pritzker as a Dune Fellow. Claire holds a bachelor's degree from Oberlin College in Mathematics and Environmental Studies.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you everyone for joining today. Before I get into the programs that IFA offers, I just want to give a brief overview of the Illinois Finance Authority. We are a quasi-government body politic and corporate. We historically have been focused on public finance since about the 80s, but in 2021, CEJA designated us as the official climate bank for the state of Illinois, and since then we have been sort of embarking on this journey to transition into a climate bank and provide grant and loan opportunities to help deploy clean energy across the state of Illinois with a little bit more flexibility than your traditional state agency has. So that's just a little bit about us, but I will jump into the funding programs. So I'm really glad that JC went first and gave sort of the overview of CPRG and all of the great programs that are coming out under it. I'm going to talk about the ones that IFA is funding specifically that he sort of mentioned but didn't go into detail about. This first one here is the Stretch Code Adoption Grants, and I want to note that this grant opportunity is currently open. You can find the notice of funding opportunity on the Illinois Climate Bank website. Randa, if you don't mind dropping that link in the chat, thank you. This grant is intended to help units of local government adopt and implement the Illinois Stretch Energy Code, which went into effect at the beginning of 2025. This stretch code is a building code that sets higher energy efficiency standards for new buildings and retrofits. And again, the NOFO is currently open, and it's a rolling application window that will close at the end of the year on December 31st. So what we're looking for in applications to this NOFO is how well it addresses the objectives outlined in the NOFOs. You can address the core activities through a number of eligible activities, some of which, but not all, are shown on this slide. But they include staff training and education, or community outreach, or maybe doing a cost-benefit analysis to see how implementing the stretch code might affect your community. But again, I would encourage everyone to go to the NOFO, which has a full detailed list of all eligible activities under the grant. So again, the goal of this grant is to get folks to adopt the stretch code, since the goal of all CPRG programs is ultimately to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But we understand that some municipalities maybe have needs to update some of their base codes before they can adopt the stretch energy code. So if that applies to your community, an application to this grant could clearly outline your plan and process for code modernization, with the end goal eventually being to go to stretch code adoption, but understanding that there may be other steps along the way. I want to stress that this grant is for planning purposes only. We will not be funding the actual energy efficiency improvements under this grant, but we do have other programs for that I will talk about. But that is the Stretch Energy Codes grant. Again, open to municipalities to apply before December 31st of 2025, but we will be reopening this program every year for the next 4 years as well. Great. Okay, moving on to the Small Utility Clean Energy Planning Grants. This grant is specifically for municipal and cooperative electric utilities, and it is designed to help small utilities plan and align their power generation and procurement strategies with the Illinois Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, or CEJA. Again, JC mentioned this in his presentation, but there will be a requirement for utilities to be submitting these types of plans to the ICC under the new Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act. And so this grant is a really great way to take advantage of state funding to pay for those costs to develop those plans. Again, this application window is also currently open and will close on December 31st, 2025, but will be reopened every year for the next 4 years. Similar to stretch code adoption, to be competitive, your application has to address all 3 core objectives that are outlined in the NOFO, which is 1, to develop clean energy roadmaps and strategies, 2, to build utility capacity and utility procurement readiness, and 3, achieve measurable greenhouse gas emission reductions. If you happen to be a municipal or cooperative electric utility that already has a clean energy roadmap or strategy, you can still submit an application to this opportunity and only address the 2 remaining objectives. but you should demonstrate how your existing roadmap or strategy aligns with CEJA goals. Again, this is key, even if your plan is going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, if you don't show clear alignment with state of Illinois CEJA goals, it won't be a competitive application. You can achieve these objectives through eligible activities, which again, some of which are listed on the screen, such as technical and financial assessments or clean energy procurement and strategy development, but a full list of eligible and ineligible activities is listed in the NOFO. And similar to the stretch code, this grant is specifically for planning activities, not construction or development. Okay, moving on to some funds that are for construction or development. We have the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund. This is a low interest loan program that is available to nonprofits, municipalities, other public organizations such as schools and affordable housing organizations, but also commercial building owners and clean energy project developers. So really kind of broad range of eligible applicants. It's more about the type of building rather than the applicant themselves. We will finance commercial and multifamily residential buildings of 5 units or more, but single family residential buildings are not eligible for this program. These projects are for energy efficiency improvements to existing buildings. So this is also not for new construction or community solar projects that will, sort of benefit a bunch of residential buildings. That our grant, these loans have to be tied to one building in particular. So this is primarily a bridge loan program that was originally intended to bridge the federal tax credits for solar projects that come in after project completion. But as many of you may know, those tax credits are phasing out sooner than we were hoping. So we're adjusting the program to allow us to bridge other incentives, such as Illinois Solar for All incentives, or ComEd and Ameren energy efficiency rebates, or maybe other state of Illinois or federal grants that you might be receiving for these types of projects that come in at the end of the project. We will provide that upfront financing to sort of bridge the gaps to help you get the project started, and then you pay us back with the incentives at the end. Importantly, this loan program cannot be used for solar on its own, as it has to improve the energy efficiency of the building, and solar does not do that on its own. But if you pair it with battery storage, or if you pair it with other energy efficiency improvements, that would be eligible for our program. I do want to highlight that geothermal is an eligible energy efficiency technology, and tax credits for geothermal are not phasing out as quickly. So you could also consider a geothermal project for this program. Importantly, any improvements funded under the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund have to be recommended by a qualifying energy audit or assessment. There are a number of ways to get free energy assessments done. ComEd and Ameren both have some programs that you can take advantage of. And I don't think JC mentioned it, but there is a new program for free energy efficiency assessments that IEPA just released. So I would encourage you to check that out as well. And yes. Again, these loans are intended to be short-term bridge loans that can help you bridge some of these eligible incentives that I talked about. They will have a term up to 24 months. So they're, again, intended to be short-term, and they will range between $50,000 and $1 million as the cap, and interest rates will be between 3% to 6%. Again, there is a cap of $1 million per building, but you could submit requests for bridge loans for multiple buildings and do it that way. So that is the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund. I also want to talk about the State Small Business Credit Initiative. This is a low interest loan program for small businesses located in Illinois who are looking to finance any clean energy or climate related projects. The criteria for eligible projects is large. It just needs to address climate mitigation in some way. And it is a participation loan program, meaning that IFA will not be the lead lender, and the business will have to find a lender willing to work with them. But IFA will participate on the loan. IFA will participate up to 50% of the loan or $2 million, whichever is less. And our interest rate is set at either 1% or 2%. And then that interest rate gets blended with the lead lender's rate, which may be around 8 to 10%. So when you blend it with ours, maybe you're looking at closer to a 5 to 6% interest rate instead. Our 1% our 1% rate is available to businesses who qualify as either a very small business or who are owned by a socially and economically disadvantaged individual, which are terms that are defined by the USDA. And you can read more about those definitions on our website, which is in the link that just got put in the chat. We also have a list of approved lenders participating in this program on our website that you're welcome to review if you're looking for a lender to work with you on this program. And these slides will be sent out later, but I have a contact for this program listed on the slide as well. Lastly, I want to talk about the Community Geothermal Planning and Pilots grants. Again, JC mentioned this briefly as it's another CPRG program, but the NOFO is not currently open. All of the other programs that I just talked about, you can apply for right now. This one is not yet released. This program is intended to support community scale geothermal energy systems. And so I want to stress that we are looking for community-wide projects that are not confined to just one building or even just one college campus or one university system. We're looking for projects that are going to serve multiple buildings and serve an entire community, not just parts of a community. So these grants are going to be released in phases, with phase 1 providing money for planning activities such as feasibility analysis, engineering and design, cost estimation, and community engagement. And I also want to stress that even for the planning grants, we are looking for ideas that have already been somewhat fleshed out and have begun a planning process and have begun community engagement, not projects that are still sort of in the conceptual phase and haven't identified communities or done any sort of community outreach. We are hoping to open the phase 1 planning grants NOFO later this year or in early 2026. And then phase 2 will fund the actual construction of the projects, and that will open about a year after phase 1. It is not a requirement that you participate in phase 1 in order to apply for phase 2, but that's certainly the intention of the program, that you use the phase 1 planning grants to get ready for phase 2. This program is really going to focus heavily on community engagement and stakeholder feedback. So I also just want to highlight that. We recently released our full plan for this program after we posted our draft plan and received some stakeholder feedback on that a few months ago. We just published that plan, I believe, last week, and it is available on our website if you use the link in the chat again. And I encourage you to go ahead and take a look at that plan to see what you might expect from the upcoming NOFOs. And that is all that I have.
Thank you so much, Claire, for that thorough overview of available funding. We will definitely be keeping an eye out for that geothermal opportunity when it drops. And I would like to pass it over to Hilary Scott now, and I will read her bio while she puts up her slides. So Hilary Scott-Ogunrinde is the Deputy Director of Energy and Utility at the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, where she plays a role in advancing sustainable energy initiatives. Her career spans construction, healthcare, and energy sectors. She leads teams in designing, developing, and financing innovative projects that drive environmental, economic, and social impact. A passionate advocate for environmental justice, she is dedicated to fostering economic opportunities in historically underserved communities across Illinois and Missouri. And she will be sharing state funding opportunities for energy.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to join my colleagues in this conversation. I'm going to jump really quickly so we can hopefully get to some questions and just provide a brief overview of the Climate Equitable Jobs Act and how it really is important to your pursuit of funding in this energy sector. So in 2021, we passed the Climate Equitable Jobs Act, and you heard Claire reference it and JC, and that is the goal to put Illinois on track to achieve 100% renewable energy by 2050. And in this bill, you will see there is funding for workforce development, business development, increasing solar, making sure all have access to solar if they desire it, other renewable energy technologies, energy efficiency, developing carbon-free power, and then electric transportation. And so if you really listen to some of the funding that we have shared today, you will see funding for all of those things. And so the ultimate goal is to provide the highest quality of life for residents in Illinois and to provide clean energy and a healthy environment. And so this policy puts us on the track to achieve that by 2050. Within the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, that's what DCEO stands for, there are 3 major offices that have funding legislated by CEJA. And so my office is that top left-hand corner, and I house most of the economic development funding. And so in that quadrant, there is the coal to solar program, which is funding specifically for energy generation companies Vistra and NRG who retired coal plants to convert those coal plants to solar and battery storage. Then under the Energy Transition Community Grant, that funding is annual funding specific to communities impacted by a coal or mine closure. And so those communities, if your community was in 30-mile radius of a plant or mine closure, you have access to this funding. And that funding is available every year for 6 years. And so we encourage communities who've been impacted by plant or mine closures to really take a look at that program and seek how they can utilize this funding to establish a project or programs that will replace the revenue that was lost and create some sustainable revenue for years to come. Currently, we have 2 programs open. One is the Equitable Energy Future Grant that is for energy efficiency or renewable energy projects. You receive up to $1 million in pre-development funding for a project that has energy efficiency or renewable technology deployment in it. Then there's the Solar Energy Sovereignty Grant that is funding to support solar development in our 3 EJ communities. And so we're really looking for community-based organizations, equity eligible contractors to develop projects that really put those local community residents on a path of ownership, of sovereignty, utility sovereignty. On the other quadrants, you have to the right the Office of Employment and Training. So there is a slew of workforce development programs and support programs to help participants in those programs be successful. To the bottom, there is several councils and boards that are supporting the department and really the CEJA ecosystem as a whole to make sure that we are providing these programs that are beneficial to the community. I'd like to highlight the Clean Energy Jobs and Justice Fund. This is a nonprofit board that was established by the legislation to provide notes or no or low interest loans to certain pocket of our contracting community that has historically struggled getting access to funding. So this nonprofit board is establishing several financial vehicles to support in creating and catalyzing the development of clean energy projects. And then down here is under the Office of Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Training, there is the Contractor Incubator and the Contractor Primes Accelerator programs. These programs are specifically to support equity eligible contractors either in the startup phase under the incubator or companies that are at least 2 years old under the accelerator, really to provide them the back office support, the technical assistance, and even access to funding to really increase the capacity of their organization. And then lastly, there is the Future Energy Jobs Act. These are several programs. FEJA was rolled into CEJA. it predated CEJA, and so some of those programs are now funded under the Climate Equitable Jobs Act. So with that brief overview, I'll get a little bit into the details of the two that I spoke about that are in my office, the Office of Energy and Business Utility, that are currently open, and they close December 31st of this year. And so these are the eligible expenses for the Equitable Energy Future Grant and the Community Solar Sovereignty Grant, professional services, applications, your interconnection fees, any type of on-the-job training, marketing, any type of community engagement. These are the eligible expenses for any project that you would like to do that has an energy efficiency element to it, if you're doing a retrofit or some type of solar, geothermal, any type of renewable energy, wind project. This funding will give you up to $1 million to get your project off the ground. Similarly, we have it for specific to community solar projects. So we have that same funding amount up to $1 million for eligible pre-development expenses specific to developing projects that increase access to solar for environmental justice in our 3 communities. Then I also spoke about the Energy Transition Grant. And then I'd like to move a little bit into now just briefly tying some of these things together. What my colleagues before me have said, and what we're doing in DCEO, we understand that it really takes a lot of different sources, a lot of different relationships and things in an effort to achieve a goal. And so we believe that we have, like the spiders who have united to take down this lion, we have created a spider web of financial programs within Illinois in the clean energy industry in an effort to help you achieve your large vision of a project. So these things coming online are all of the different funding mechanisms within the state of Illinois. And you know what? They're probably not all of it because I haven't updated it in at least a month. And so I'm sure there's something else that might be missing, but you heard some of it today. You heard JC talk about CPRG. You heard Claire talk about the things in the Illinois Finance Authority here. And so, you know, there are many things that the state is doing to really help empower you with the financial resources you need to execute your energy project. And so this slide actually has the links to some of those various programs that you saw on that larger ecosystem slide. And this is a slide I like to do just to encourage your thought process in doing a project here in Illinois. I like to give a little scenario and just discuss a little bit what your capital stack could look like. So if your project was if you were a nonprofit organization and you desired to renovate a mixed-use commercial residential building and have commercial space at the bottom, let's say, and market rate housing at the top, this is your potential, just a suggested capital stack. At the top, you would have the agency that you could pursue the financial products from. So this is the Illinois Finance Authority. So if your project had energy efficiency elements in it, you could pursue CPACE, commercial property assessment. Don't get me to telling a story about what the C and the E stand for, but you can go on IFA's website and see information about CPACE, building electrification, and some of the other things that Claire just mentioned. Then if your project, which we hope you would, include solar, you could pursue the energy sovereignty loan, the community-driven solar product. And then under IPA, you could look at Illinois Illinois Shines or Illinois Solar for All. And then under DCEO, you could look to apply for the program I just shared, the Community Solar Sovereignty Grant. Also within DCEO, we would encourage you as it relates to the business development and engaging contractors and workforce. Under IFA, it has that one of the products that Claire just spoke about, the SBCI, so helping with funding for that particular contracting business to do that project, or even working capital. Under DCEO, we have the incubator and accelerator programs and the workforce hubs. I like to highlight here that under our EEF grant and these two, the Community Solar Sovereignty Grant, we have a document where we want to see that you have utilized the CEJA ecosystem. What do I mean by that? I mean that you have engaged an equity eligible contractor to participate on your program, that you have engaged participate in the development, to be a subcontractor or a prime contractor, your general contractor, to build your program, to build your project. We would like to see that you have engaged the local workforce hub or the local Climate Works apprenticeship program in your area, so that those individuals that we are investing in training in energy efficiency, like energy auditing or solar, can participate on that program, on that project. And then if as you look at the other, if your project has any type of HUD qualifications or HUD target individuals for your market rate or low income tenants, you could look to the Green Resilient Retrofit program. And then of course, I still have IRA here because you might be able to make some of that happen before the dates run out, but those are still resources that are available within the marketplace. And if we were to look at the local capital stack, you could be looking at some type of TIF funds. And then of course, our utilities have rebates that you can apply that also support your capital stack. I did another just scenario based off of just you being a business and wanting to do a retrofit, and pulling out again some of those programs that could support your project. So for the sake of time, I'm going to stop there, but just wanted to encourage you that there are several resources in the state of Illinois to really help build your clean energy efficiency project.
Thank you so much, Hilary. I really appreciate that you provided examples of how all of these different funding opportunities connect. I think that's just very helpful for communities to see. So we had so much amazing information just shared, and I'm sure that you all have questions. So now is your opportunity. Please put your questions in the chat and we will get them answered. Okay. Looks like we've already got our first question. So how can local governments access these funding opportunities? And then they have a little bit here about how many of the programs appear to be designed primarily for contractors and community-based organizations. Are there specific programs that support local governments interested in retrofitting their own facilities?
I can start on that one. The Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund is definitely a program that we want local governments to take advantage of to improve their facilities. Again, that's the energy efficiency. You need to get an energy audit done. And then if you were doing energy efficiency and solar together, we could provide a bridge loan, bridge eligible incentives that you might be getting, and provide a low interest loan for upgrades. But I also believe that there is a new IEPA program for this, if JC or John wants to talk about that too.
I might kick that to John because he's a little closer to it. Yeah.
What was the program question? I was getting ready to type something in the chat.
Oh, I was talking about the Energy Efficiency Trust Fund.
Oh yes, yep. That's what I was going to actually drop in the chat box. Yeah, so we have two, let me come on camera. We have two programs that just came out. We have a Energy Efficiency Trust Fund that's for multifamily housing. Projects can be 50,000 up to $1 million. And I'll put the links directly in here. And then we also have another program that opened up for our multifamily energy efficiency assessments. We have about 350,000. That's live right now on our website. Where you could get funding to do the energy audits. So
Yeah, and I'll jump in and say what I think is really cool is that you could pursue John's funding for some of the planning, and you could also pursue our Equitable Energy Future Grant for pre-development expenses as well. So that could include the site selection, the site identification, selection, the feasibility of it. So if you're doing the audit, you could, engage your contractor for the audit. You could also utilize that funding to hire your consultant that can help you build the construction capital stack. And of course, Claire just shared one particular source for the construction capital stack. But between, John's program and the Equitable Energy Future Grant, you could receive, pre-development funding for all of those pre-development expenses that are needed. And that would even include personnel time for the city. The amount of time, the allocation of time that your city employees are having to take in an effort to develop this particular program, as well as the consultants and professional service providers you'll need to guide you through the process.
Thank you for answering that question. They also had another question about geothermal relating specifically to local governments. They said that they noticed that it excludes applicants who are just beginning to explore that option. And so I think they're just looking for, is there any opportunities you see coming out for local governments interested in geothermal?
So as I mentioned, that again, the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund could fund geothermal projects for municipalities if they were wanting to do those types of improvements on their buildings. I would honestly love to see an application come through for a geothermal project. The larger geothermal program, yeah, again, the intention is to do sort of very large scale projects. And so we anticipate that people will have a lot of ambitious ideas, which are what we want to see, but we want to make sure that those ambitious ideas can actually be funded and implemented. So, you don't have to have everything fully fleshed out, but we're not looking for like ideas or concepts or, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this or this? It's like you need to have gone out and talk to your community and have an idea for how that could work, which I don't think excludes local governments and municipalities, but I understand that, resources for planning, can be limited.
However, the Equitable Energy Future Grant is the funding source for that feasibility and that analysis, engaging the consultant needed to identify that. And then you would speak to in your application how you would pursue the funding that Claire just explained to execute the geothermal project. So you can stack them.
Yeah. And our planning grants will fund, feasibility and technical assessments. We don't expect that you've done that. We just expect that you have a real idea for the type of project you might pursue and that you have gone out and spoken to community members about that idea.
And I will note her funding comes a little quicker than mine. So
Thank you both for answering that one. And I just want to say there are a lot of resources being shared in the chat from Illinois EPA on other energy opportunities. So just be sure to be checking that out. We will send that out afterwards as well. We do have a question here. Are there any affordable or ethical resources for small businesses to assist with reviewing these applications to ensure any fixable errors don't hinder their approval?
Where is that question? I want to make sure.
I
It's
don't
a
know,
bit
Abby, if
early
this is
on.
exactly what you mean, but for our EERLF, the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund program, if you get far enough in the process with us, we have a tax accountant who will be reviewing any documents that you submit to us for that show that you're eligible to receive tax credits. So I know that's kind of a very specific thing, but if small businesses are like, well, I think I'm eligible for tax credits, but I'm not entirely sure, and I, want a professional to check it. If you are applying for our program and you get far enough in that process, then we will check those things for you. So that's one thing that IFA provides, but I'm sure that there are other resources too.
And we did just get a link in the chat for technical assistance that you can get if you are pursuing certain grant opportunities. Thank you for answering that one. We have a question. This one's a little more specific. I'm not entirely familiar with this, but they're just asking about clean energy modeling, and if the state is creating an open source modeling program like Colorado. If there's any insights you can offer on that.
Hey, I can field that. And I responded in the chat too. Hi, Bill. So that CPRG measure hasn't been implemented yet, but the Illinois Power Agency is engaged in some resource adequacy modeling, which is similar in a lot of ways to what the CPRG is going to be supporting in the future. And so I dropped a link in the chat where you can look at the resource adequacy planning that they're doing now and learn a little bit about how they're approaching it from a modeling perspective. I don't think that they're using that NREL model that you mentioned. I think they are using some similar software or identical software to what the regional transmission organizations use, because we need to solve for what the regional transmission organizations are doing and thinking. So we're trying to mimic their process as closely as possible. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, and we have one from Amanda, and it's for Claire. And she's asking, Claire, you mentioned the need for an energy audit / assessment for the revolving loan program. Is there funding for those audits? And do Ameren energy assessments count?
Yes, I just posted a reply to the comment. Yes, if you go to our website and you scroll down a little bit on that Solar Bridge Loans, which is the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund page, I know that's a little confusing. If you scroll down, we have a list of free or reduced cost energy assessments that you can take a look at, including the IEPA new energy assessment program. All of these assessments should fit our energy audit requirements, but if you want to double check, there's also the energy audit guide on that same page that you can look to see what we need. Typically, we need an ASHRAE level 2 type of audit, but we can also work with your auditors. Sometimes we've received audits that are just missing a couple pieces of information, and we're able to just go back and ask the auditor to confirm a few things. So we will work with our applicants to make sure that they're getting the energy assessment that will meet our requirements. And Ameren's usually will cover it.
Thank you so much, Claire. That is very helpful. And yeah, thank you all again for presenting. We are at the end of our session here, so I hope this was helpful for you all. We will be sending the recording resources afterwards, and so hopefully that will be helpful as well. As a reminder, this is our last Resilient Communities webinar for this year, but we'll be coming back in January, and we will be talking about data centers and the energy and water impacts to local communities. So stay tuned for that, and thank you for joining.
Thanks, everyone. Good to talk with you.
Yes, and to our speakers, please send me your slides as soon as you can so that we can get those to our